digital transformation journey taking place in our country, especially in view of the time of pandemic we are coming out. Friends, digital transformation has been a key priority for government across the globe for quite some time. And the Indian public sector too has been really focused on its agenda of creating a Digital India program and various other pillars for strengthening the overall digital ecosystem in the country. In the past few years, we have seen an amplified effort in this regard with almost all public sector enterprises adopting the best class digital initiatives. The reason for doing this is simple: enabling better digital driven citizen services. I would say that one important factor is the maturity level in the department officials, because in the earlier phase of e-governance, I felt that bureaucracy was still struggling to deal with the technocrats, and that contributed significantly in terms of the lack of preparedness on our part to be unable to respond to the changing trends at that point in time. But lately, our bureaucracy has also geared up, and the technocrats have also joined various government ministries and initiatives, which has helped in changing the overall digital landscape in the country. The government has realized the potential of interdepartmental information sharing and workflows. So instead of creating all the systems in silos, now the focus is on how can how can all the systems be interoperable with each other in order to share and exchange the information and be supportive of each other, and look into the value of the data and information which is being created, first in individually, then in a collaboration manner. So in the same sense, my question is to Mr. Amit Sharma. Mr. Sharma, we have seen this, that integrated technology platforms have proven to be a very great enabler during pandemic. Would you like to share in brief how you use technology to mitigate the pandemic challenges and what is next for you in tech projects? So over to you, Mr. Sharma.
So good afternoon, Pankaj, and good afternoon, Tech Observer team. First of all, my warm hello to all my co-panelists who are sitting here. Like, we have been often meeting in one way or the other. These days, obviously virtually only, but in person also. I remember the days when we used to meet in conferences and always used to exchange a lot of ideas. Like Golok ji remembers, and we all have been doing so. Thanks to you also for bringing us on the platform and remaining in touch. Secondly, yeah, now my thing is very important. Actually started with integration of these things which you introduced with, and this is a very interesting topic, like how government is going about the things, and you started it very rightly, I believe, Pankaj. Like yes, now the government is more focused towards integrating all the things. Like, we are realizing of late, like into technology, into e-governance and all, that gone are the days when we worked in silos. Like, all departments who used to work in and out to create technological solutions, they have realized that ultimately it is for the welfare of the citizen, the common man, the last mile user. So I think it is like we are in a state like now we have to go in for integration. There's no second thought about it. And here I want to add on a couple of things, that how we are going like that and how this thing is happening in this particular manner. Like I can quote certain examples in front of all of you. Uh, like, we are talking about digital India. So similar is the scenario, like we are creating something very interesting, which is known as digital Jammu and Kashmir, especially after we entered into the mode of becoming a union territory post August 2019. Like, we have taken it in a big way. We have gone for so many of reformative things. Yes, pandemic also set in between, unfortunately, I would say again, it resulted into a blessing in disguise so far as our UT is concerned, because so many things happened. I'll tell you with the technological interventions. To start with, we have used the technology to that's applicable everywhere, every UT. Like we have been getting people registered through COVID app and getting vaccination done. And here we created a special dashboard also for the UT of Jammu and Kashmir, that is COVID dashboard. This COVID dashboard has been working day in and day out, basically doing a real-time analysis. In that real-time analysis, we have been doing finding out that where the availability of beds was there. I'm talking especially about the peak times of Corona, when first or second wave or the next wave came. So in all the three waves, it has been really, really helpful, like availability of beds, which hospitals, availability of oxygen cylinders and everything. And even unfortunately, finding out that how many people have got infected or how many fatalities, and everything is registered, the serious repercussions. So that's a very good dashboard come real time, analysis of how things went on till date. Apart from that, why I say blessing in disguise, because I remember when we joined the civil services out here in Jammu and Kashmir some couple of decades back, we had been trying hard to bring in everything on a paperless mode, that is e-office. So let me share it with a lot of happiness that finally we could do it during the pandemic, which was never ever happening. And it was like more out of compulsion rather than out of choice, I would say. But then the UT administration became so focused, like we got this thing approved and time bound, steps were taken. And finally, we achieved that all government departments in JK are now paperless in civil secretariat. Like there is not even a single file moving. I wish I could have shown you my table or any other table of all secretaries, even down the line in, right from section officer to everywhere. There is no concept of paper files. All the legacy data got scanned in a very, targeted manner. Now everything is online, and even the dark receipt. It's like CRU. We have created a central repository unit. Like nobody is allowed to physically come and get the papers marked. They come in the central repository, and both the secretariats are fully functional. Jammu and Kashmir is having a unique proposition, as everybody is aware. Like we have two capitals which have been operating, like 6 months in Kashmir and 6 months in Jammu. We have been sitting. It was happening in the past, but now that thing has also become a kind of choice. It's not a compulsion now, because all 12 months, both the secretariats remain fully functional and operational. And senior officers obviously have been moving both the places just to ensure and facilitate work keeps going on. And officers down below the line have been given a kind of option to stay back with their homes, because earlier displacement was there, 6 months of students' education, everything. And also why it is very unique. E-office implementation is not a big thing, but in JK it is very unique and very, very special, because we had a major issue in the sense, Darbar move used to take place, if you all know. With the movement of capital, all the record in the physical form manually used to be taken from Jammu to Srinagar and back from Srinagar to Jammu, when the capital, winter capital, used to move to Jammu, and summer capital to Srinagar. So it was such a painstaking thing, and not only painstaking, it was a challenging, daunting task. 300 kilometers by road. If anybody by chance amongst you has traveled from Jammu to Srinagar or Srinagar to Jammu, it is really challenging. Like we used to sometimes say hilariously, like if one a truck carrying a department would fall in the river's Chenab. Very challenging from Ramban and those belts. Like today, also some landslides were there and highways closed. So we used to say that whole department would vanish, and that was a fact also on the serious side. It was that kind of challenge. And apart from that, so much of government exchequer or taxpayers' money was involved in the sifting of records, and don't forget that accommodation to officers 6 months in Jammu and 6 months in Srinagar, along with all the facilities, whatever, and like environmental degradation, so much of pollution, so much of things, wastage of paper, everything. I don't even have list is unending, and exchequer up to I think 200-300 crores. It was not a small figure. Like in a struggling state or a UT where every money matters. So for us, it was a very special thing when we could successfully implement e-office within a span of 2-3 months in both the civil secretariats. And now we have actually pressed the button that is all HODs in the field have been replicated. The same thing, everything has become on e-office, and we have explicitly given directions like today is the last day as per the government circulars and directions that no file in physical form would be accepted in the secretariat tomorrow onwards from
No,
all HODs.
that's a great point, Mr. Sharma. I remember I used to tell it to my colleagues. It's not only Darbar move, but the whole ecosystem, whole state moves. And trust me, there have been instances. I come from a private sector. There have been instances where some of our projects were stalled for a couple of months because the Darbar move was in progress. So I've seen, and this is, as absolutely rightly said, this is blessings in disguise, or I call this as opportunities in adversity. I think pandemic has gave us that opportunity. So fantastic, fantastic outlook on these points. So moving forward, I think what you said, Mr. Sharma, is very important, and partnerships have played. Private partnership have also played their key role, in determining the success of digital transformation in India, and especially across states like J&K and northeastern part of the country. These partnerships and private sector have helped us in understanding the key challenges and also suggest the right kind of interventions that are needed at right point of time. The government too has been very appreciative of the kind of support many private partners have rendered towards making India digital, and more so for the state governments. So my next question is to Mr. Sarabjit. You heard Mr. Sharma talking about and sharing his views to how they migrated the challenge of pandemic and this Darbar move and the kind of technology adoption they are looking at. Can you share your experience based on some of your customers' journeys in these difficult times? Maybe working closely with the government, especially in terrain like J&K and northeastern part of the country. So over to you, Mr. Sarabjit.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me well?
Yes, Sarabjit, we can hear you. You can please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, my very warm good afternoon to all the eminent panel today, and to the Tech Observer team to kind of get us all together. Very heartening to hear the views of Mr. Amit Sharma, and I'll just build from there what he just talked about. He talked about something very interesting. He talked about the focus on integration. He talked about the focus on digitization, the true honest digitization, which he talked about in e-office, where he's saying, literally no paper. We've been talking about e-office for years, and this pandemic has got us to a stage where, this is becoming a real reality. So what's our experience? To your good question, Mr. Pankaj. So I'll bucket my answer in three, areas. The first is we're looking at lots of conversations on automation. So when we are speaking to the customers are saying, can I automate everything? And I literally mean everything. Can I automate my network operations? Can I look at my security? Can I look at my application provisioning? Because now the pandemic has made us realize that locations have to become not an element of success. We need to get that independence. I could sit anywhere and kind of automate all my operations in the data center. And not just the data center, even if I've got a cloud, I need to have a layer which does everything. So that's my first bucket which I'll put in. The second is we're looking at a lot of focus of the discussions on hybrid multi-cloud, the new RFPs which have come from NHA, what we are looking at, what Ministry of Finance is bringing, what we're looking at, where we're looking at CRIS, the private clouds, the public clouds. We're looking at second kind of conversations are on hybrid multi-cloud. But here, I want to bring a focus to one very, very important conversation which I have been having, where the customers have been telling us, we're looking at hybrid multi-cloud, but we don't want to be tied to a public cloud. They're very cautious about this. So that's a second. So they're saying we are mitigating. We want to have those conversations. At the same time, we want complete portability. That's a second conversation. And the third in my list is just adding up to what Mr. Amit Sharma said. We're looking at lots of integration conversations. People realizing their solutions in the truest sense. We're looking at application platform selections, which are going to be strategic going forward for all the workloads. They're saying, I'm able to run my traditional, I'm able to run my AI/ML, I'm able to run my this thing, and I want it, absolute agnostic to whatever I'm bringing and agility in whatever I'm doing. So these are three in my list. And in terms of number, if I have to leave for the group, we're looking at 4x time the conversations which we were doing on digital transformation to what we are doing today. So that's my submission to what we are seeing from our customers adopting as an organization, which is a technology provider. So it is number one, automation, number two, hybrid multi-cloud, and a very serious focus on being still agnostic, having the complete independence. And third, application platforms, DevOps, and integration to kind of use the best of whatever technology brings.
Thank you very much, Sarabjit. I think you have touched upon all the three important pillars which are needed not only for the private sector, but also to make digital trends successful in public sector and for the government at large. I think adding to this, technology imperatives have been constantly changing, serving the citizen with a new level of speed, convenience, and personalization at all possible touch points. And all these possible touch points are now on top of the government agenda. Looking at the current pandemic situation, it has been endeavor of the government to make the services paperless, contactless, and faceless. That is what Mr. Sharma was also talking about, and you have also emphasis on the similar trends, Sarabjit. So the government endeavor is to make the services paperless, contactless, and faceless, and it has been able to achieve these goals to a good extent. And we saw this in example when we were talking about the movement of Darbar from J&K to Srinagar or vice versa. The recent developments in M-government and M-governance, mobile governance across India are actually testament to this such developments. So my next question is to Mr. A.P. Singh. We noticed that government organizations have started offering a kind of omni-channel experience within the government and outside the government. So via self-service portals, mobile application, chatbots. Would you like to share your views on the underlying agile and scalable IT infrastructure for government organizations? So over to you, Mr. Singh.
Thank you very much. And I really thank Tech Observer for having me here on this esteemed panelists. And on this evening, I would like to share, I come from the power sector, where every citizen, every person or every family is connected to the system. And in a wide, we have a wide variety and wide cross-section of the consumers. On one side, we have industrialists, other side, we have the commercial consumers as well as the rural folks. So when you create a digital strategy to interact with your consumers in such a wide spectrum and with a great difference in profile, then you have to really create a full-fledged strategy, because your applications connect with the interfaces you create for the consumers. So it's a very really interesting experience. We started our journey with Consumer Connect in a planned fashion in 2012. Since then, we have come a long way. Now we have an omni-channel presence of kind of thing. But earlier we were having only the dialing system 1912, which is the helpline to consumers. But our experience through this period has been that the consumer profile, while we connect with the our systems through omni-channel presence, is very important. It is very important to understand the profile of the consumers, their preferences, their likings, their abilities to connect, and the technology trends elsewhere also, like the mobility, the uses of portals and other things like the basically the WhatsApp usage and the other kind of things. So you have to be very agile to when you connect the consumers, and you have to constantly study their preferences and create your own interfaces with the for the consumers, and simultaneously your own applications which really provide information to consumers through these interfaces like omni-channel present omni-channels. So are to be very strong, in the sense you have to constantly update the capabilities of your systems. Like we were having our own data centers, and in government sector you cannot invest frequently to your data centers, and moreover when the usage is so unpredictable, the investing in creating a use case or business case for the applications for hardware is really becomes challenging. So now with the availability of cloud service providers for the last 3-4 years, that problems has been mitigated a bit, and we had also moved our applications and other infrastructure to cloud, and on cloud we could easily scale up our operations, so that helps. So now the other part is what actually you want to offer to your consumers or users and users. So that is very important, because user experience ultimately is very, very important. Otherwise, what happens if you must, it must be a gradual approach. You must give whatever you can serve efficiently. If you give, all the things, all the facilities, but the user experience is not good, in that scenario, it becomes really, challenging for the to justify your investments and services. Simultaneously, the business processes also are re-engineered, because if you don't do that, then perhaps consumers are not served that efficiently. I can give you some simple examples. Like last 2 years, we made our giving new service connections on completely online. So the earlier business processes have to be changed. Everything went into the hand of consumers. They provided the time to interact. They provided the necessary information. Our person will go there and collect the information. It all reversed. Earlier, the consumers came to office and came with all the relevant documents, papers, and then sometimes they complained about the behavior, about the attitude of the person, which has completely changed. So we had to re-engineer all the business processes. That is equally important. I just want to mention that. And then the more channels you provide, the interaction between them and the integration issues and all those relevant things, the scalability, all that also becomes relevant and should be taken care of in a proper fashion. So my point is, my take is like this. I mean, the study of consumer profile and gradual approach to scale up, providing the channels like WhatsApp channel or whichever prominent channels are there. I mean, dial-up is important, and WSS, web self-service, is equally important. So still, there are so many consumers in our organization which really do not connect, even if we have the presence of all those channels. So the next challenge, how to connect those who are still left with. So because on one side we have created digital channels and we expect our users to come through the digital channels, but what if they don't use? Then what are the alternatives? That's an open question. I mean, that is still to be taken up. Then what should be because you have altered your mechanism, you have changed your way of working through, using the digital channels. But on one side, a majority of the consumers or a large portion is still not digitally connected. So then how they should be connected, how should be they taken care of? So this is something which is to be understood in our journey. And other is the cross section of services which you want to really offer to those who are really present. So, but certainly, things are moving up, and we are offering, all utilities are offering, at least payments they are offering to be available everywhere, and complaint management system, and some are offering the connection and severance services. So this is a use case which can be basically replicated in other departments and other services. So my take is the understanding of the end users, their preferences is important, and that you must create your own digital strategy, and including the applications, including the hardware and the scalability, all those things. So this is my understanding about this. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mr. Singh. I think we could not agree more that creating omni-channel is one part, but how do you bring more people on these channels is another task, not only in context of capacity building and awareness, but also in terms of increase the penetration of these omni-channels to the last person, and especially so in our country where we are mobile is at one side in the urban part of the country, mobile is becoming very important instrument in our hand. Other side, we know that 40% of our population carries smartphones and 60% is yet to be covered. So in that context, I think it is very important that how do we not only look at increasing the interfaces and providing the omni-channel, but also how do we create those mechanisms where people are able to use those channels for their benefits and to the extent possible in this large country with the spread across various demographies and have facing through connectivity and infrastructure challenges. So thank you very much, sir, for putting your views around this. And moving forward, I think we have seen that exponential technologies like hybrid cloud, digital workspace, data center modernization, cyber security, etc., are playing a major role in the success of government transformation and have helped build a comprehensive service framework. Government organizations have invested in technologies, and now there is growing demand to make the workflow more agile and secure with the adoption of new next generation and new gen technologies and automation platform. So in the same context and light, Sarabjit, if you could share your views on emerging trends for making government workflows more agile.
Thank you so much. I think this question is very close to me. I really like that you are posing me this question because I started my journey, just to share a bit about myself. Long 25 years, I started as a workflow person. I used to work on Lotus Notes as a workflow technology, moved on to look at a lot of technologies in the BPM space. And so as a practitioner of workflow, I think, thank you so much for this opportunity. So what we are facing, what I am looking at personally as an architect from Red Hat and, in my journey, I've seen few very, very significant trends today. On the agility, and I'm going to build on what Mr. AP Singh said, it's not just important to create a solution in a workflow. It's also important the ability of you being able to change it quickly. Very, very important element which he brought in. That, so that's first which I'm observing. When I speak to EPFO says, Sarabjit, today I've got you on. Tomorrow I need to link Aadhaar. I need to do something else for my members there. So that's the first, the ability to not just create quickly, to change quickly. You and I must be getting these notification chatbot on IGL, give your meter reading there. So it's like the agility to change is number one factor. The number two, which we are facing is the use of the data science. Very important. So data is the next oil. So what people are really looking at is, can I bring in AI ML in my decisioning? So workflows are becoming more smarter. They're becoming more important from a perspective of how I can use technology for it, how I can use predictive maintenance. So when I speak to a manufacturing customer today, or when I speak to somebody in financial, so they're saying, or Ministry of Finance, for example, they would say that if I need to audit somebody, can my workflow predict whom to audit? That's the second. And the third element which we are finding in our conversation is taking it to the place where it is needed as a workflow. So Mr. AP Singh talked about a lot of elements of the workflows. Now we are looking at, if it's a healthcare sector, data has to be, workflow has to be at the place where it is. So if pandemic happens, the origin is in a particular area, you need to understand the patterns, you need to have workflows running there. So edge is becoming a very, very important element. So a lot of our solutions today, when we are having our conversation in healthcare sector, they're saying data residency is serious. You can't have a central solution. You can't have a central running workflow. You need to have diagnosis at the edge. And I can't send all my data because it is PII, personal identifiable information. So that's the third which we are looking at. And the fourth, which is which is again just important from the first three, is, can I take it from all the telemetry? Can I pick up sensor data? Can I pick up IoT? So I'm hinting at IoT. So these four elements are what are becoming, which are making workflows very, very rich, very important as a decisioning tool. And that's what is defining the agility. So I personally feel we all are IT companies now. The bank is not a bank, IT company. A state running is not a state, it is an IT company. Passport, Mr. Golok would be talking about it. So what is the face of a passport office? It's an e-passport application. So IT, the workflows are becoming so strategic there. So that's our submission to this.
So thank you very much, Sarabjit. I think very pertinent and very important points put here. I think if I can box these points together and label this as innovation-led platform and stack, it would not be out of place here.
Yeah.
I think some of the innovations which have taken place in the government in the last 2 decades in terms of service delivery or in terms of creating the stacks and platforms, etc. Hence, it's imperative that innovation-led frameworks and IT models be designed, as you rightly said, in those 4 buckets. I think it's equally important that all those are well stacked with the IT models and innovative models and innovation-led frameworks. And government platforms are looked into a comprehensive manner. What could be better example, as you rightly said, than the Passport Seva project, especially while we are inching towards innovation like e-passports, and who can better explain this to us in context of what innovation and what IT models digital adoption is happening around this better than Mr. Golok. So Golok, this question is for you. What should be the 2 immediate key priorities for government technology leaders when it comes to service delivery, especially in view of government IT platforms and digital models? And why I'm asking so, because we have seen this NDTM, the National Digital Health Stack, Tourism Stack, and so many other stacks are taking place. And so is I would say that Passport is another platform and stack which is inching towards, next layer of innovation. So over to you, Golok, if you can throw some light around this.
Meanwhile, when he comes, I would like to express my views on this part, that digital leaders, as we have been working in the public sector, what is the important is to just, whenever the idea comes, break big ideas into well-defined waves of practically achievable stepping stones and study in incremental progress. So prioritizing the best idea, nurturing them, testing them, and scaling them. For that, the digital leaders in organizations and big organizations especially also think about the right platform, the right partners, especially when the selection of partners is really rule bound and you have to follow certain rules. And then a very important aspect is operating model. What kind of operating model you select, and that comes when you carefully study the service delivery, the services to be delivered, and the service delivery mechanism. So for the digital leaders, and unfortunately there are not many reference models available. So if we can really create a repository of reference models in different best cases wherever they have been, that would help others to replicate the ideas, and also to connect them is the new emerging or technology innovations happening elsewhere. So that's also clubbing together, and on one side having the innovations, and other side the reference model which have been practically success. That's
Absolutely.
important for the digital leaders.
Absolutely, sir. I'm involved with some of the startups and helping them and guiding them. And what difference I have seen during this time is that all of these startups which have built over the period of time, or in the stage of, coming up in near future, they have taken all their innovation in two steps. One is the ongoing development and building of the digital landscape for them. Second side is the innovation, where they have already started talking about the next version, which they want to roll in next 2 to 3 years of time. So while one side they are building the current architecture, they are adding services to this, they are moving on to microservices based architecture. Second side, you would see that many of these startups are moving towards the world of metaverse. How would they collaborate with NFTs and cryptocurrencies, use them for building their metaverse and all. So I think all of this has to go hand in hand, and same is the case with most of the IT organizations in government or IT divisions in PSCs like electricity departments or other HPCL and other places. How can you start treating these organizations, these divisions, as startups in itself, where you are delivering services to the citizens, building on the current architecture, information building mechanisms, data sharing, etc. at one side, and keep building on your innovation-led and thought-led platforms on the other side. So that time when we reach that stage, we are in a position to bring this innovation which was being developed at the back end at the forefront. So I think that is very important to look at this in two folds and switch the sides as the need arises.
Yes, and I would agree that having a very clear vision from the digital leaders of the organizations and deciding about the starting point, destination point, point of departures, all those things, and impact of digitization, continuously evaluating the progress of the digitalization, and having the right kind of partners is really important. Right kind of partners could be the one or two the startups or a group of startups or the established partners already, or a combination and hybrid of kind of things. So that is the vision of the digital leaders in the organization that helps, and that should be there. So it's my view.
Mr. Sharma, I think one important aspect for J&K I have seen is the way tourism has built over the period of time. How can we give that experience to people across the globe through digital innovative platforms, maybe using like metaverse and such platforms for creating that virtual environment for people to experience the valleys of Srinagar and other places, and eventually that would promote the tourism in various part of the country for people to experience it virtually, and then they would feel like coming to the place. So I think time is when people would look at any such thing through the experience, not only going through the website or mobile application, but experiencing through the gaming app or through metaverse virtual environments. So I think this is a good time for your good office to look at such emerging technologies to bring in. And I have seen many of the states have started setting up their emerging technology arms within their divisions. So if you have any views on this, would be glad to hear that.
The point is well taken, and I think you have been telling a wonderful thing. Just me take the opportunity to share another thing. Like recently, we have revamped J&K tourism website. Like my agency, Jammu and Kashmiri Governance Agency, actually took the initiative, and you are talking about the next step. Actually, we have revamped and made it very much user friendly, like with bookings, with a lot of virtual tours also, and so many things like which have some videos, some those things, some links to some important even travel tour operators. We're giving them an insight, and even the properties which are like which can be hired at just one click of a button. Some mobile friendly, like we're talking now about M-governance. I believe now is the era of M-governance, not E-governance, because here we actually tend to attract more and more people, because these days everybody, and let me add on here the vision of my government, our chief secretary, everybody. Now we are talking about your mobile are off. We are working on a kind of I won't say it's a slogan, but it's like the next in thing. Like we are now looking forward, like we'll be more or less into more such activities. Like in future, we'll be creating more. And these things are like gaming. You said like virtual touring and all those things. So this is wonderful. This is wonderful. Our points are well taken. Maybe in the next meeting when we meet up, I'll have something more to share with you after discussing with the tourism.
Sure, I'll be glad to see that, sir. We are working with Ministry of IT for on their emerging technology platforms. So maybe we can discuss this more in detail whenever we connect next. I'm particularly working with the Ministry of Tourism for their Incredible India site. So soon you'll get to hear that the site would be revamped, where such features are being introduced. And I'm in touch with a couple of organizations where they are talking about giving you the experience of visiting to a temple where you feel like you are actually being there. So I think one such talk with Mata Vaishno Devi, Shri and other places can help revamping the tourism in J&K.
I fully agree, Pankaj. Like this is a wonderful idea.
Thank you very much for joining today's session. I think, as they say, that no journey has been successful, has been without roadblocks. And so has been the case with the digital transformation initiative as well. Heading towards the real digital revolution, there have been certain challenges India is facing, but the government is taking some proactive steps to overcome these. We all have been discussing and know that India is a diverse country. not only in terms of population and language, but in terms of demography also. I am sure we are heading in the right direction, and platform-based approach would help us to achieve faster than what we anticipated in the era of digital transformation. So anyone, if you have any last point, then we close this. Thank you very much.
I would just like to thank, it's been total pleasure to be here to hear, eminent speakers speak. And so nice to hear Mr. Amit Sharma and his vision, Mr. AP Singh talk about the diversity of the workflows. And thank you so much for giving us an opportunity as Red Hat to talk about our experiences. A lot to learn from the eminent speakers today. And I've also taken the name which Mr. Amit Sharma talked about, the place, and that will be my one to kind of strike and visit. So a lot of
you are welcome
nice
to
discussion.
JK. Otherwise,
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much.
So thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Thank you very much, Sarabjit. And thank you very much, Golok, and everyone out there. Thanks a lot. It was nice connecting with all of you.